I also want to get the council up to speed on the conversations that are ongoing with the Lake District, the County of Portage, as well as the Village of Whiting. Multiple conversations are ongoing with the stakeholders with all 4 municipalities. We would assume that we will have some documents for your consideration for the committees in February, as well as the Common Council in February as well. We're working on draft agreements between the Lake District and the city. We're working on agreements that would take into account all 4 jurisdictions in terms of the repair costs, and then ultimately those would make their way through the county committees, the village, the Lake District in a full membership meeting, and then ultimately through the committees as well as the Common Council here, hopefully in February. As all of you know, the injunction hearing on the city's ability to continue to move forward on its redevelopment activities for the Centerpoint Marketplace will be heard tomorrow as well as Wednesday, so that process will move forward. This is an injunction hearing relating to our ability to continue to move forward with redevelopment of that facility. Obviously, our hearts and prayers go out to those that lost their jobs with Colligan's as well as Joerns. I do want to read a correspondence to you. There have been multiple conversations as well as correspondence between the stakeholders that have been working on Joerns. I want to take this opportunity to specifically thank Representative Malepsky, Jerry O'Brien, Raymond Nass, Paul Jaden, the Secretary of Commerce, the CEO of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, as well as many others that worked tirelessly. Maurice King with the Steelworkers Union, who is also the chairman of the town of Dewey, Senator Julie Lassa, in terms of all of the work that our stakeholders have done in really what we felt was create a stakeholdership that was one that focused on economic development through the use of every incentive that would be at our disposal, specifically the state as well as the local municipality. That did not work, unfortunately. And Joerns, of course, has made subsequently some very difficult decisions that obviously will impact a lot of lives and a lot of jobs here within Stevens Point. It comes on the heels of the Director of Community Development and myself interviewing and hopefully moving forward with the hiring of an economic development specialist not too quickly in terms of our needs to move forward. I want to read you a correspondence from Renee Daniels, who is the Executive Director of the North Central Wisconsin Workforce Development Board. I wanted to let all of you know that the Department of Workforce Development, our dislocated worker program, will be having the initial rapid response meeting with the company and union officials on Wednesday. We hope to learn more about the timeliness, any negotiated severance and or benefits, and other pertinent information. We will then set up a series of employee meetings to discuss available resources. At those meetings, we will ask employees to complete an assessment survey regarding their short and long-term plans and desire for retraining. I know there has been some confusion on the availability of the Job Transition Center in Post Road and Plover, and to work with this group, as you know, that center is currently being funded with special dollars for New Page and the Whiting dislocation. I'm working to provide some additional workforce board funds to our dislocated worker program so they can use that facility to serve the Joerns workers as well as the Ramada, Hudson's, and Culligan's dislocations as well. Full services are always available to those employees who have been dislocated at the Wisconsin Rapids Job Center, and they will be also scheduling an independent meeting for the Ramada group. In addition to that, we are having conversations with the Portage County Business Council on the creation of a very specific economic development marketing plan targeted for the Stevens Point Plover area in our continued efforts to not only highlight the extreme importance of economic development, but to specifically highlight what our geographic as well as economic opportunities are for businesses who would be looking to come into the area. As you all know, we continue to work with Shine Medical. They are doing their due diligence while they're considered Janesville and Stevens Point, and we have another lead that we're working on as of right now for a significant employer that would be looking to relocate from a different state, moving into Stevens Point as well. We're working through some of the toughest times, of course, that our community and the country has ever faced when it comes to jobs and economic development, and I am very thrilled that we made the investment and modified the position of Community Development Director to take on these added roles, because they will not be any less than they had been in the past, and only presumably will become more difficult for us to continue to move forward with. One of the other new items that I have wanted to start this year and moving forward is the opportunity under my remarks to allow for alderpersons to ask questions of the mayor if there are specific items that alderpersons either want us to address more specifically, or if there's added clarification to items that we may or may not be working on that the alderpersons are looking for clarification. So with that, obviously either on the topics that I had discussed in brief, or if there are other questions that alderpersons may have, you certainly could do that at this time if you wish. Mr. Slawinski.
I guess if you could elaborate more on the McDill, the position of the purchase of the dam. On this week's paper, it was stated that it was, there was a number floated out there, and I guess I'd like to know where we're at as a city.
We had sent correspondence to the Village of Whiting indicating that the city would like to discuss transferring of $25,000 to Whiting in exchange for the transfer of that dam eventually to the Lake District, based on Common Council approval, and then the ultimate agreements that would have to be crafted between all parties relating to the repair. The $25,000 number was one that was actually quite specific in that previously the Village of Whiting did not have an operation and maintenance plan on file for that dam. That was something that actually goes back all the way to 1999. It became a relatively minor issue for the village in terms of their permitting process. It became a major financial issue for the city because the absence of that plan ultimately allowed FEMA to come back in and redraw the floodplain maps for the Plover River area, which pushed a lot of our properties into the floodplain where they had historically not been. So the $25,000 offer, which was really the first salvo in creating negotiation conversations that we wanted to continue to have with the Village of Whiting, the Village of Whiting ultimately made their decision that they do indeed expect money for the transfer of that dam, and that sum is $60,000. So we will have to, again, work for some solutions, hopefully collectively with a variety of different parties, to find an answer to that $60,000 question, which would be the transfer of monies to Whiting. And then, as I have had reiterated with Village President Stroik, $60,000 is acceptable to the Whiting Board. That's the sum they would then accept for the transfer of that dam to, hopefully, the Lake District in the long run. Other questions? Yes, Mr. Trebeteski.
Recently, the media, or the newsprints, have stated with the closing of Joerns that there were a number of incentives either from the city or the state or a collaboration of everyone. Is there any way that you could expound on what they've turned down?
Well, we had discussed between $500,000 and $1 million in TIF dollars that would go directly to the company for job retention. That was on the municipal side. I never was given the exact amount of the tax credits that were confidentially worked out between the Doyle administration and the Walker administration in their offers to Joerns. I can tell you that they were material and they were substantial. But I cannot certainly disclose, actually, nor am I aware of the specific amount. The state senator, as well as the representative, and I had more open and honest conversations about what that sum was, and that sum was significant in terms of the state's involvement through tax credits. I will say this, on this particular issue, I have been pleased with the attention that we've received from the Walker administration, as well as Secretary Jaden, in terms of their diligence in working with us on this matter, just as the Doyle administration in their waning months were as well. So it has been, it was, I think, one of the best partnerships that we had built to deal with a particular topic over the last 2 years. Unfortunately, it was to no avail.